Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's May 20th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And somebody had requested that I put up a blank chart to begin with, and at first I told him no, we can't do that because I put the lines on as the day goes, and I don't want to take them off, then have to go put them all back on, and it just take too long. But I just wasn't even thinking. I had a brain freeze, but you can open a second chart. So I just opened another chart, and there it is. There's the blank one, just so you can take a look at that to see what a blank slate looks like. And this is a real obvious. Look at this strong trend. Look how the EMA is pointed up pretty much all the way, and most all your price action is above it. You see how it pokes through occasionally a few times, and same thing coming down. It'll poke through a few times before it kind of works like a trend line. You'll get a push or two through, and then a move to a new low, and then it reverses. And now you can see we're just kind of working sideways. Prices are back and forth. You kind of work sideways here too. See how flat the EMA is getting. You got to remember to use this EMA. It'll help you decide. I mean, when this is the far right hand side of the chart and prices are back and forth above and below and it's going sideways, then you know it's not really trending there. Even though the bias is still up today, and this is still an uptrend, we aren't really trending there. So here it's obvious prices are straight up and most of everything's above the EMA. Here most of the prices are below the EMA and we're trending down, and you can see the EMA pointing down. So I hope that's clear. But that does remind me of one other thing. A trader sent me. I think he was using NinjaTrader 8 because I don't believe it. They have it on this particular chart. So I'm having to. The way I used to do it is basically what his suggestion was, that when you're studying the chart, to move it to the far right and just watch it bar by bar there and try to practice trade it. Of course, if you got NinjaTrader, there's replay. I've never used replay, so honestly, I don't even know how easy or how well it works. But if you just want to study your charts real quickly, just throw this thing up and start moving it bar by bar and trying to watch it. See, we got a first entry there. We're going higher, and suddenly you had a second entry, but you didn't get a good signal bar there. Good thing, because it probably would have failed. Still going higher, but notice you got a little trend up. You got a break. And again, you didn't get a very good signal. That's one thing I noticed on my chart today. I didn't get hardly any good signal bars. There were the few times we came back to the key entry points, I didn't have good signal bars. And you know, you can choose to ignore those, but when you do, you're going to have losing trades. It's a great filter. I believe in it, and I follow it. Even when nobody's looking, I follow that rule. If I don't have a good signal bar, I'm not taking the trade. So, but keep in mind that you can't just kind of watch this thing in the far right hand side. Just watch it bar by bar and kind of watch the prices and practice trading it. And that's good. That's better than just looking at the blank chart like here and saying, okay, but I still think it is valuable to come back at the end and look at the big picture and say, okay, where did all the big moves happen? Here, 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 and here down, here down. And if you start looking, you'll find out all those big moves happen at key entry points. And so if you can find the key entry points, you can find those great places. So I still think it's beneficial to study the chart this way, the whole thing as well. But I really like the idea of doing bar to bar. And that's the way I used to do it. Back in the early days, I just had it on a piece of paper. And, you know, I printed the chart out, I laid it down there, and I laid a piece of paper over this, and I just would move it bar by bar, the piece of paper. But it's so much easier to do it on the chart now than I can remember when I first started getting charts, you had to pay for them, and they were all paper, and they were a week old by the time you got them. Imagine trying to trade that. That's what we used to trade back in the old days. And I can remember getting that book of charts and sitting down and studying that chart. And now, if I can't get my charts in 5 minutes, I'm mad as a hornet. So, but anyway, I'm wasting time. I'm going to close this chart. We'll go on to the real chart. And here it is. And you can see we had a two-tiered channel up. That's way too steep. A good a good trend is about a 45-degree angle. So if your trend is anything different than 45 degrees, then it's probably going, especially if it's too steep, it's probably going to flatten out some. A nice healthy trend runs from corner to corner, and that's about a 45-degree angle. And if you took this and slid it down, it probably would run corner to corner. So that's pretty close to 40. That might be a little flatter. This is definitely a weak downtrend. See how prices are back and forth above and below the EMA. You really can trade that both ways, even though it's a trend. But I didn't see any setups I really liked. There might have been a long down here a couple of times, but I didn't mark them. But they were possibilities because you could trade that both ways. So just because anytime you see prices going back and forth above and below consistently, and the EMA is really kind of flattening out here, that's a range. So, but you can clearly see the two-tiered down channel there as well. Anyway, let's back out and let's get through these trades. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I did want to show you one other thing. Just make you can go from, a trader showed me this today, but I guess you can do it on your charts. I think he has NT8. I'm not sure. I hadn't heard back from him yet. I tried to get him to clarify, but I hadn't heard back from him. I think he's in a different locale because he posts late at night, or maybe he only gets a chance to look at his stuff late at night. I don't know, but I'll probably know by tomorrow, and I'll update it if there's anything different. But maybe he's using NT8, but if so, there's some little way that you can make this thing move bar by clicking, and it just will move to the next bar. Put from the far right, and that's a good way to study your chart, just moving bar by bar. But even if you don't have that, you can just do like I'm doing with NT7, I have version 7. Just move it bar by bar, and that's a good way to study and practice trade, and take your time and to watch it and say, okay, we got a second entry long here because there's a new swing high, first entry, second entry. Actually, maybe that's not a new swing high, but anyway, what if you were here, first entry, then second entry, and you're watching that, and you could say, hey, maybe I go long here on this second entry. It's first break, but notice how not a very good signal bar, and it fails pretty quickly. So you can practice trade like that. But if you got NT8, which I think he had, there's some little button down here and you click it, it'll move bar by bar. So just keep that in mind. But let's back on out, talk about the trades. First of all, let me show you there was a measured move here up when we went into this range. You measure this first leg, and then we started back up right there. That's basically a perfect measured move up to that new high right there. And that's why I marked that only trade, because it's in a range and we had a measured move. But once it was obvious that we were still in this trend here and going higher, you won't see any more marked shorts. This is a strong trend. So anyway, let's talk about the trades. Let me back out a little more, make this a little bigger. But notice that we're in this uptrend. Notice how prices are still holding to the EMA right up through here. That's a pretty good sign that we may still work higher yet. But this is the first break of this main trend line. So we're looking for prices to come up here and make a new high. And you actually moving down, you get a first entry, and then you get a second entry long when it broke above right here. But look at my signal bar, very bearish. Then you get an inside bar, and it's not even a real great bullish bar. So there's no way to go long on mine. If you go long right there, look what happens. You don't get stopped out, but it could easily come on down to the trend line. That's another thing. Well, actually, you would have had this drawn off these first couple of swings, but it wouldn't have been confirmed yet. So it still could have come on down here. But notice how the EMA is holding. But notice that low right there is a double bottom. So that's like a new swing low. So that's a first entry short, and that's a second entry short. And we're not looking for second entry shorts in an uptrend, but we look for failures. And when I think this broke higher and turned back down, and then went back up and closed. This is a very neutral bar, but if it did turn down first and then went out the other side, you could consider going long right there. But no matter how you enter, your stop has to go down here below this low until this bar closes. And you know exactly where that low is going to be. Then you put your safety stop one tick below it. And it wouldn't have mattered because this played on out pretty quickly and you got your scalp, and that's all you probably would have gotten. But we back up again, and then we push to one more new high, and there's actually a couple of legs up there to a new high. So now you've had your break of your main trend line, a couple of legs up to a new high. You've got some resistance across here. So this is like a little failed break higher, and really you could call that a double test of this level over here, and a nice bearish bar a long way away from the EMA. And look how bullish that bar is. There's going to be a lot of traders that don't know any better. They get long up here on this little range, thinking that they've outsmarted everybody. And because that's the way most people teach you to go long on a breakout of a range. And so you're going to be ready to go short. And look how that thing shot down real fast. And then when it hit that EMA, it came back, and then it shot down real fast again. So that the fact that it shot all the way down there that quick is because all these longs had to exit. They realized they'd screwed up, and that's what traps do. And that's a nice trap there. And then there's just nothing going on here. It's too tight. There's no room to get in from the lows up here with a good signal bar. There's no room to go short from up here. And really, once it bounces here and goes higher, you just got to forget about any more short. So it's just not worth taking anymore. But you bounce, you take off, you turn down once. It's tempting to go long right there, but that's sideways. You got a doji in there. You're a little ways away from the EMA. You're not too far from the highs, and that could easily break up there, turn back down, and then go higher. But you run all the way to the high here. You do get a close and a new high, and I marked this one green. But just because it was a failed, we had this range and it's a breakout, it's a second entry short, and we may pull all the way back to it. You're at least probably going to come back to the EMA in the midline, and so for that reason I marked it green. It's aggressive. Don't try to pick these. This one's not as good a trade as this one was because it's clear the trend's still going now. So you're better off to wait on this move. And notice that low, first entry, second entry, and it bounces at the EMA in the midline. You can treat that like a failed second entry short, expecting this to go back to here. And it turns back down, and there's two legs back down here and a second entry long. This is an inside bar, but it's two matching lows, a very bullish bar, and it's a second entry long in a strong uptrend. So I like going long right there. You prefer it to be back here to this trend line, but notice we did overshoot it about the same amount there. If you added that on, it'd probably be a perfect tick. And somebody asked me about that today, and I haven't been talking about that as much. But when you come up short like this, a lot of times when you go over long like this, you're either going to come up short that amount or you're going to overshoot it that amount because the market moves in equal lengths. And so notice that coming up short, how we overshot it again up here. And so that's telling you something. And I probably don't mention that enough lately, so I'll make sure I start mentioning that. So I appreciate that trader bringing it up. But it's really, really important when you come up short on this end. Notice it looked like we were going to, but we ended up pushing on. But I like that second entry long on that nice bullish bar because you're expecting prices to at least come back and test this. Notice we did push through and come back and kind of test it there, but that's really more of a bounce off the EMA. And a lot of times you'll get another little pullback to test, even if you're going to go lower. So I like just trying to ride that back, and it ends up just going much higher. And you can't short, and you don't really get any more long setups up here till right here. And notice you got a new high, first entry, and that's a second entry long right at the key entry point, the midline. Now the midline's not as reliable But this has been a strong trend. So, and when we overshot this twice for a little while there, I was thinking, hey, there might be this might be the midline, and there may be another, the trend channel line might actually be an equal distance for both of these all the way up here. And so you don't want to miss out on a chance to ride up to that. So I thought that was worth taking on the second entry. You figure you're going to get a scalp out of it at a minimum. You get a higher low here, but no signal bar. And then you get a failed second entry short here, but it's right into the highs. You can't take that. And look what happens. You just get stuck there. There's no shorts up here. The only one you might have taken would be that one with the overshoot. But again, it's just too strong. Notice that low first entry. It's a second entry short, a double top. It's actually a little lower high. But you can't trust that because you may turn right back up just like we did. And you would have scalped out of this one, but it could have turned up and you got stopped out right there. Then we run back to the trend line, but you don't get any setups on my chart. Look how bearish. Look how bearish. You don't get a tick lower right there. It's just a shame that I don't get a setup. There's a possibility of one here, but it's right into the resistance, so that's too dangerous. So you just don't. My chart just was like that today. I did not get a lot of good setups, mostly because my signal bars were not very good. But we run on up, we pull back, and that's a double top. So first entry, there's a second entry long. Look at that nice little bar. It's really a double bottom here, and really you could count that as a test, and another test that rejected, and then this third test on the second entry. So I like that. It's kind of a repeat pattern from that other one way wherever it was. Oh, right here. Kind of looks a lot like that. The little two legs back and it bounces a little early. Then it runs up to the midline and it sells off. And you can't go short into this trend line, even though we've had a close outside. Actually, on this one, we haven't had a close outside yet. It was the bigger one. So you can't really go short into that. But notice what happens. You get a first entry. Notice how it comes right through the EMA. You get a first entry long, and it shoots on down right through the trend line. And you get a second entry long, and it comes back and tests the trend line and the EMA. And if it breaks lower than there, that's a failed second entry long. And there's probably going to be a lot of longs that have to exit here. People have been getting long all the way up, and then look how that rockets down. Boom. And a little profit taking goes on, and you get the next little shot down, and people are having to run out, are having to exit that are long. So that was a nice trap, long trap right there. And you could anticipate that one. The fact that we went through the EMA and were below it and couldn't get back, and the fact that we turned back up here, if this thing fails, you know you got a long trap and you're probably going to have a good short there. So that's one that you could anticipate and wait on it, because I wouldn't take that long right there. Not with that signal bar. Even though it's a second entry long, it's not a good spot right there. You'd want to maybe wait on a higher low here, back up inside the trend line, or at least on a trend back up. Not one that confirms a downtrend. And we just keep working lower. There's just nothing down. That's too much congestion, too far away from the EMA. Same thing here. And this is what happens. Even though this one worked, usually this is what happens. It breaks out, fails, and turns up on you. So you can find something like this that'll look like they'll work, and they won't. So then you get a nice second entry short with a decent bar, first entry, second entry. That's not a perfect bar, but that's close enough after that big move down on a second entry. And then you get another second entry here, but that bar is too bullish. So that's another one that I wish I'd had. Notice you got a trend working up, close outside, new high, but you don't get a setup. So if you had a good signal bar, there's a good one. There is a lower high here. I think that's too risky. We work on down, and then it bounces down here. I marked this one green. this is a downtrend, but look how prices are back and forth above and below the EMA. It wasn't as readily evident here as it is by the time it gets down here. And you can see how flat the EMA is actually really starting to turn up a tad there now. So you may take that just to ride it back to the EMA. Such a nice bar. And it is 2 legs down. You got 1 leg and then a second leg. We run back to the trend line. This is actually a 3rd entry, but that good a signal bar respecting the trend line right there like that far away from the EMA, take that trade, especially when you got a close outside the new high there. And then you get this lower high, which looks a lot like this one. So it's kind of a repeat pattern. I'd take it this time. You got a lot more room to work with too there. Then we bounce a little short, so notice how it goes over a little bit. And you really get a triple test up here and another big bearish bar a long way from the EMA. So there's another short. This one keeps going. There's that lower high again. I didn't mark it because you didn't have as much room. You really were right into those lows across there. But when it tried to go higher again and broke higher right there and failed and turned and went out the other side, you know you got them trapped again. And it's an easy ride down here. Then again, you got 2 legs. You got a leg down and then another leg down. And where do we bounce? Right off the trend channel line. A nice bullish bar a long way away from the EMA. It's a little aggressive, so I marked it green. But you may take that trade. But the better trade comes here. When we pull back to the EMA, you get a first entry, and then it ticks lower and fails and turns and goes back up. Just go long right there on 1 tick above that. You couldn't wait on this one. It's too far. It's too big and too far up there now, too close to the highs. And really, you didn't get anything else that got us into the 2 o'clock hour. So that's pretty much what I saw, and it's 23 minutes worth, so I'm not going to beat around the bush. Back out and leave that there just so you can get one more look at it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.